We said that accounting was the language of business. So terminology and the words are really important, because if you don't know what the words mean, when we move on to complex topics, you won't understand them. So I'm going to introduce some basic terminology, and then these terminology I would like you to practice over and over again until you are very comfortable with them. In this class, we're going to be looking at corporate accounting. A corporation is a company that is owned by one or more people. A corporation can be owned by other companies as well. There are very small corporations, but when we all think of corporations, we're thinking of large companies like Google, Amazon, Walmart, etc. So this class focuses on corporate accounting, and the terminology that you're going to see is based on corporations. So some of the basic terminology. When we talk about assets, assets are items or resources that a company owns or they have control of. Again, these are very simplified definitions. If you go look in a textbook or any other resource, the definitions can be a little bit more complex, but I'm trying to keep them very simple so you understand what they are, and then when you read the more complex definition, that'll give you more information. So think of assets as items a company owns or controls. For example, if a company owns a building, that is an asset for the company. Next, let's talk about liabilities. Liabilities is what a company owes. These are debts of the company. These have to be paid back. An example of a liability for a company would be a bank loan. A bank loan is a debt of the company. Next is equity. We're going to talk about something called stockholders equity or shareholders equity, but equity is the amount of the company's assets that belong to the owner. So we said assets are items that a company owns or controls. Well, equity represents the amount of those assets that are owned by the owners. We will discuss equity in a later video. Next, we'll look at some more terms. Revenue. Revenue is what a business earns when they sell goods or services. For example, every time Walmart sells its merchandise, it's earning revenue. What about a bank? A bank earns revenue every time they charge interest or fees from their customers. A school earns revenue by charging tuition. So that's examples of revenue. Next, let's look at expenses. Expenses is defined as the cost of doing business. I tell my students to typically think of amounts that have to be paid every month, quarter, or year. Examples are things like salaries, utilities, typically the kind of bills that are paid every month that recur. Some expenses, like taxes, may only need to be paid every quarter or every year. Next, dividends. Dividends is what companies pay to their owners from profits that they've earned during the year. Companies like Walmart earn lots of profits. They don't distribute everything to the owners. They keep a lot of it to finance their growth or other operations. But since they don't need all that money to finance their growth, they pay some of it back to owners, and that is called a dividend. Typically, it's paid in the form of cash. Some companies don't pay dividends at all. So companies like Amazon, even though they make lots of profits, they have not paid a dividend yet. The reason being they're still considered growth companies, and these companies put everything that they earn back into the company to grow. At some point, they won't need all that money to grow, and then they will start paying a dividend to their owners. Shareholder or stockholder. That is the term we use to describe the owner of a corporation. So a shareholder or stockholder is the owner of a corporation. That's all the terminology for this video. We are going to look at more terminology and expand on some of these in the next set of videos.